Welcome back, everyone. Phoenix 3 here, and I want to talk about the correct way to build a Pidgeot EX deck. I see a lot of people on YouTube who play the deck, and they play it wrong. I just saw a video uploaded like maybe an hour and a half ago, 2 hours ago, where he put together a Mega Pidgeot Tapu Koko Circuitry GX deck, and I'm like, none of that has any synergy with Pidgeot at all, to the point to where I really question, a lot of these people in the community when it comes to like their skill at the game. Sure, these might be people who still win tournaments and not, but you tell them to build a deck and they can't do it. They'll show up with something that somebody else won with, play it, and then win, and somehow they're good. And I don't necessarily think that is the case at all. One thing that people need to understand is what exactly is the card good at doing. Now, you would think this is a question that I would not have to say, like at all. Can you play an aggro version of Mega Pidgeot? Probably you can, but I don't think it's the best version of it because Pidgeot doesn't have the damage output to really be a threat to something because you're going to be two-shotting most things. If you're going to three-shot something, then you're probably already not doing that great, but Pidgeot can play around with numbers in a certain way. For example, when we look at Pidgeot here, the attack that you want your opponent to be scared of is Mirror Move. You don't want them scared of Mega Pidgeot. You don't want them scared of the Mock Cyclone. You don't even want them like scared of the Almost Night Spear. Like you don't want them to be scared of those attacks because they're not going to be. You want them to be scared of Mirror Move. You want them thinking, if I hit this Pokemon, how does that affect me later on in the game? Because if you want to go with base Pidgeot, if they hit you for 160 damage, you have a 160 damage mirror move. If they hit a Mega Pidgeot for, let's say, 210 damage, then you have a 210 damage mirror move, assuming you actually built the deck right. So this here is the attack you want people to be scared of. So you always want to make sure that you start with a Pidgeot EX. Now the build that I'm going to be running is going to be a Mega Pidgeot build, and that's simply because you want to have the 220 HP as a buffer. It's just super nice being able to have a potential 210 damage mirror move, and that could really matter in a matchup like Tapu Bulu Vigavolt, where the most damage it can do to you is 210 damage. So you want to play around this number here. Also, Mega Pidgeot presents enough to mind game the opponent. For example, if you don't have, say, Shining Celebi, which is another card you should have in the deck, which will go ahead and bring that up. If you don't have Shining Celebi on your bench and they hit a Mega Pidgeot for heavy damage, you can always Ultra Ball this and go for it. So, oh wow, I forgot where I was going with that, but you basically want to have this down on the board because this is basically going to let you use your mirror move through Mega Pidgeot, meaning you have access to a 210 damage mirror move or 240 if you manage to get a choice band on it, which isn't all that hard to do, which is something that I would suggest you try doing anyway. But the main reason that we want to run the Mega Pidgeot is because it's safer to run the Mega Pidgeot as opposed to running a Fighting Fury belt, since 210 isn't that hard to hit. I mean, 220 isn't that hard to hit either, though, but it seems to be a lot harder to knock out a 220 HP Pokemon than a 210 HP Pokemon. And now that Field Blower is in the game, you really don't want to rely on having Pidgeot survive with a tool attached through your opponent's turn in order to deal your damage. So we want to just run it like this. As far as draw support goes, because you need draw, we can go with Zoroark. We can go with Zoroark GX. Now, as much as I like Zoroark GX, we don't want it in our Pidgeot deck. The reason for that is this fighting weakness here, and fighting is pretty popular in the meta right now. The reason we don't want it in our deck is because we want them to be hitting our Pidgeots. We want them to hit the Mega Pidgeot, put damage on that so we can mirror move them. We want them to hit our Pidgeot EX so we can mirror move them. Like, that's the whole point of the deck. Get them to hit Pidgeot, and then you punish them for it. A lot of the times, they might not even attack your Pidgeot because they don't want to take the damage, and they just might end their turn waiting for something else to do, or they'll Guzma around the Pidgeot and hit something like Shining Celebi, which isn't all that bad because you just attach another energy and you Mock Cyclone them, and then you force them to hit your Pidgeot so you can mirror move them. Like, that's kind of the goal is. But if you're playing against your opponent and they're running Lycanroc Zoroark, for example, or some Buzzwole variant, they'll just attack this the entire game, and they'll knock this out. You can't mirror move when they attack you, Zoroark. You just can't do it. So we want to make sure that we aren't giving our opponents free prizes. So the best thing we want to run here is Octillery. Now, I'm a fan of running two of them. I know some decks like to run 1-1. I'm just not that lucky, or maybe I'm just not that good at the game. But I will always prize one of them, or they will just target it down and knock it out. And we simply don't want to have to deal with any of that. So we run with that, and of course we run the Wild River Remoraid because it has the ability to switch. So if something happens and my Octillery gets stuck in the active spot and I can't move it, I could put a Pidgeot down on the bench, attach an energy to it, use Wild River through Shining Celebi, move it back to the bench, put a Mega Bird in the front or a Pidgeot in the front, and let that take the hit since that's what we want. Now, there are other things in here we can run. We can run Tapu Lele. My deck actually runs one Tapu Lele because I don't like starting with it. As a matter of fact, that might be all the Pokemon that I have in my deck too, now that I think about it. No, there's a Cobalion in there, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about the common core for Pidgeot. So, we have just the one Tapu Lele because we don't want to start with it. And assuming that we can get something going here, we might not ever need it. There is a chance you will need it though. So we want to have the one. There are some times where having two works, but this is just my personal deck that I have in real life runs the one, and that's pretty much all we're going to go for with that. Energy, you want double colorless energy. That's not up for debate. I guess it doesn't matter which one you run. We'll put the, I didn't mean to do that. We'll put the pink ones in. You want your 4 double colorless energy, and I guess it doesn't matter what other energy that you run, because you are running a colorless Pokemon. For personal preferences, my personal deck runs metal energy, simply because I have the Cobalion in there, and we want to be able to attack with it because it makes the Gardevoir matchup that much better. It's surprisingly good how well the matchup is with the Cobalion in there. It's just so great. But we can run the metal, but if you don't want to run Cobalion, then you want to run the Psychic Energy. I figure around 9-ish, we'll say 10 energy should be fine. And that's so you can Tapu Cure with Tapu Lele. Maybe you don't want to sacrifice a Pidgeot or a Mega Pidgeot early, or you just want to remove some damage from Pokemon on the bench. You leave yourself with the Tapu Cure so you can heal your birds. You don't waste any energy. You don't let something sit out and die. You just have a way to heal. Tapu takes the hit. It's not something you want, but it happens. But you want to play for whatever your other attacker is, if you have one. Tapu Lele is a good other attacker. We don't attack with Celebi. We don't attack with Octillery, though it'd be funny in some games to lock something in the active spot with it. But we basically just have the Psychic Energy in here for Tapu Lele so we can Tapu Cure. That is it. If you have some other attacker or some other support Pokemon that you want to use, then you put your energy in with that. But Pidgeot doesn't care what energy you put on it, so you want to be able to support whatever it is that you can use for your other attacker. Trainers, and this here is the one thing that I see a lot of people messing up on. When they run their Pidgeot decks, they don't have max potions in it. It perplexes me how people overlook this card, and I know it's because of the mindset of the game right now, where everything has to be fast, everything has to be aggressive, everything has to have the exact same core. The common core that works for most decks does not work for Mega Pidgeot. And if you try to use the common core in a Mega Pidgeot deck, then you're not going to have any fun with it. Yes, I made a video showing a Pidgeot deck with a common core, and that's because I run Garbodor in the deck, so you can get away with that. But in most cases, you're not going to get that to work. Max Potion. You need Max Potion in this deck. That's not up for debate. You can run as many as you want. Some people like to run 3. I always say go 4 of Max Potion if you're going to run it, because it's going to be that much better in the matchup. You Max Potion, heal your damage on your Pidgeot, tap the energy, you Mirror Move them, and you force them to respond. Ideally, you want to be trading 1 Max Potion for a knockout. If you're having games where you have to trade 2 Max Potions, 3 Max Potions for a knockout on something, then you're not really going to have the best of times. Sometimes you just have to learn when is the best time to sacrifice a Pidgeot and move on to something else, just so that way you can keep something for late game. And that's really the hardest thing with this deck here, is if you don't have your Max Potions, then you need to figure out what it is that you want to sacrifice, because sometimes the matchup is just not that great and you really can't do anything. So we want Pokemon Fan Club. We use this, and we use 2 on our deck. And this here is going to be just so we can get Pidgeot EX, because Bridget doesn't do much for us in this deck. But we can search for a Pidgeot EX or 2, we can search for a Remoraid or 2, we can search whatever we need. Sometimes you have just these really great hands where you'll start with like 2 Pidgeot, and then you just fan club for 2 Remoraid, or you'll get like a Pidgeot Remoraid, and you just play a fan club, you get yourself a Remoraid and a Pidgeot, put them down. It's just really good. We don't mind taking 1 less card out of the deck for Bridget, but this deck doesn't play like every other deck in the format, so we can afford to do this kind of stuff here. Alternatively, you can run with Nest Ball if you don't mind making your Garbodor matchup a little bit worse, but I like Bridget. It's a solid, or Bridget, Pokemon Fan Club. It's a solid way to open the game. Of course, we want our Ultra Balls, and you run just 4 of every single one of them. 3, 4. You run your 4. As for supporters, I believe in Mallow. Now, Mallow is a card that I do run 4 of. I think I might be messing around with a deck that has 3, but 4 just seems like the really nice number because it's a good way to get certain things back. On top of that, you have to run N, unfortunately. I do not like this card. I wish it would go away, but you have to run it. And 3 N should be fine. As far as other supporters, you might say run Sycamore. I don't think you need it. But if you are going to run Sycamore in your deck, then only run 1. Acerola, on the other hand, has more of a place in the deck. I'm not exactly sure on counts. Like, my personal deck doesn't run Acerola, but I think the one online that I play does have an Acerola, and it is a card that I've been testing with. I really do like the card, but I think Acerola kind of presents another issue with the deck, and that's if you're playing Acerola, you're not playing a supporter for something else, which would be a Mallow, and Acerola would technically pick up a Mega Pidgeot with all the energy and resources on it and put it back into your hand. But I feel Energy Reset does that better. Reason 4, we can Mallow for Energy Reset and a Max Potion, which in a lot of cases is going to be really good for your deck, simply because you're still getting the same benefits that you would with Acerola, except you pick up your energy, or as much energy as you want, save it, Max Potion, put it down, and you don't lose your damage buff with Mirror Move, since when you pick it up with Acerola, that goes away. Your goal is to keep your Mirror Move around for as long as you can. I think there's application for 1 Acerola in your Pidgeot deck, and then After that, you just kind of go on to doing some other things. The other thing that you do want is Puzzle of Time, and we do run 4 of these. Now, I did have in my list where you might be able to run with 3, just always play to have one Puzzle of Time around, but it's just way too inconsistent. You much rather have an option to play 2 puzzles during a game, because that'll be your max potions back. You could play a potential 8 max potions in the game. Your energy reset, you can play that at least 3 times during the game if that is something you want to go for. You can pick up supporters if you want them. There's a lot of things that you can actually do with Puzzle of Time that I feel is going to be super useful. You can even do something like recover energy from the discard pile. You need a DCE, you got it. Some people might just want to play with special charge, and I really think you have to make that call between energy reset and special charge. I think both have their application in the deck. My deck personally runs the energy reset and the special charge. That's simply because I kind of like having both of them. But I do feel like it's having 2 cards or 2 different cards to do the same thing, and you really have to figure out which one you're more of a fan of. Energy reset will allow you to get your energy back and then use it instantly. But if you have no energy in play, then you can't use it. Oftentimes, it's too slow. Maybe it might be prized and you can't really use it. But I like it enough to leave it in the deck. With special charge, you can play your max potions, discard your special energy with the knowledge that you'll be able to get them back. And in this case, I do believe that special charge is probably the stronger call to make in this case, simply because you have the option to get them back later, which does add more cards back to the deck, which can potentially prevent you from decking out. So that is definitely going to be a personal call, but I do think you have to run energy reset or special charge in your Pidgeot deck. Having other ways to recover energy isn't going to be all that bad either. You can run Super Rod if you want. My deck also has a Super Rod in it, and that's going to be so we can get back our Pokemon and our basic energy, which is something that you may find that you need. A lot of the times when you're running through max potions, you just have a problem finding that last energy you need to close the game. So between Super Rod, Energy Reset, and Special Charge, then you can have the potential to close out those games where you really do need that energy. I don't think you need 3 cards dedicated to this. You should be fine with Super Rod and Energy Reset, or Super Rod and Special Charge. Either one of those will work. But that is definitely what you want, because you want to ask yourself something. What is Pidgeot good at? Pidgeot is good at punishing the opponent for overextending. If they don't hit you for 170 damage, then they give you a really big mirror move. If they don't hit Mega Pidgeot for 220 damage, then if you have the Shining Celebi in play, you get a really big mirror move. Um, and that's what you want to be playing for. You want to make sure you have access to a max potion or a way to get one. That's where Mallow and Energy or Puzzle of Time come in, because maybe you might not have any more max potions in the deck, but you can Mallow for 2 puzzle pieces to get yourself a max potion energy. You want to make sure you at least have access to a Shining Celebi, so making sure that you have both in your deck is going to be super nice for you. The reason I choose to run 2 of them is because I don't like things being prized. And since Shining Celebi is such a strong component to their deck that allows you to get more damage out of nowhere, you want to make sure that if one is prized, you still have access to it. If both are prized, then there's something just wrong with the game and the universe hates you. Another thing, you want Field Blower. Most decks probably run like 3. You probably run 1. My personal deck runs 2. And that's simply because we want to be able to deal with things like Octillery. Octillery turns off your, what's that, Time Recall. It turns off your Abyssal Hand. You don't really care if Lele gets negated or not, but it slows you down enough to where you can't find your max potions. So you want to be able to make sure that you can deal with Garbodor. I think every deck should be fine with that. But if I had to look at it, you can run 3 or 4 Mallow in your deck. I personally like 4, simply because I can always get them back. But you are playing Puzzle of Time, and I believe in the next set we get Pow Pads, so you might even be able to cut them down even further, which is going to free up more space. Energy, I say at a minimum, you run 9. There aren't too many times where I found that I was lacking energy, but the time I was lacking energy was because I didn't have proper recovery for them. Like, my only way to get energy back was Puzzle of Time, and at that time I wasn't running Super Rod and I wasn't running Special Charge. Still, it's a personal call between special charge and energy reset. You can run both. My deck runs all 3 of them, but I'm currently testing that. Acerola, I don't think you even need in the deck, but it's just nice being able to pick something up that you can't heal, or if a Tapu Lele is in the active spot with damage because you Tapu cured something, you can pick it up and have it to be used later on in the game. Pokemon Fan Club, I run 2 simply because I don't want the only one copy in the deck to be prized. And you might even say, just run an extra Lele and have it for when you need it. Again, that's a personal call, because I would much rather start with Pidgeot. And I mean, starting Remoraid isn't that bad. We can move it if we have to. My personal deck runs Switch, so I would even say if you have to, you can run Switch. Where is it at? It's all the way in the back. Um, we didn't even cover Guzma. We'll throw it in there just to have it. We'll put Switch down too. Guzma, I'm fine with just 3 because, like I said, we played the Puzzle of Time, so we don't necessarily need all of them. And when Power Pad comes out, I think that goes down to 2. But it's going to be a tough call to say for sure. Switch, I have Switch in my personal deck as well. There's only 1 copy in the deck, and I feel like it's nice to have an option to pick something out of your deck, because Mallow here lets you search the deck for any 2 cards, put them on top of your deck, you draw them with Octillery. The strength with this core is we can find a lot of things that we need. Maybe we need to move something, but we can't play Guzma because we need to play something else. Mallow lets us play that something else to get everything else that we need in the deck, which is the reason why I say, Acerola is a choice. I don't even think it's absolutely necessary in the deck, so we'll remove it, because we're just going over the common core that you should want to have in your Pidgeot deck. Having 1 switch isn't bad because you can find it with Mallow. And with that, you can move your Octillery, you can move your Tapu, you can move your Shining Celebi. If something happens and you have to switch a Mega Pidgeot out, then you have the option. But you also have Guzma if you don't mind playing a supporter for the turn. But overall, looking at things, this here is the absolute minimum that I think you want to have in your Pidgeot deck. You want to play the Pidgeot strengths, and drawing through your entire deck is not one of that. Pidgeot is ironically in the card game a Pokemon you want to be very conservative with, simply because you want to have your max potions, you want to have your puzzles, you want to make sure you have access to some energy, and you want to make sure you have a way to find these cards when you need them, which is the reason I argue 4 Mallow is a must in the deck, because there will be turns where you'll play 3 Mallow and you'll realize, oh, I don't have another Mallow left. So you're, out for the most part, and you have to rely on Puzzle of Time. At least with a 4th Mallow, you can do something. Mallow lets you set up your Mega Pidgeots. It lets you continually attack with your Pidgeots. The reason we run 4 Max Potion is the same reason we want to run 4 Mallow, is because there'll be times where you'll play 3 Max Potion, then you'll realize you don't have any more left. The 4th Max Potion allows you to overextend a little bit more, or have a way to heal something else so it doesn't get knocked out and it doesn't really interfere with your Pidgeot's staying power. Because there might be a time where you have to max potion and Octillery just to keep it in play, or Tapu to not let it die, which is where Acerola can come in. But it's really a personal call. You really want to have the ability to heal your Pidgeots. That's what your deck is. You want them to hit Pidgeots. If they hit an Octillery and they knock it out, they take 1 prize, and they're not taking 2 on something like a Zoroark GX. which I did personally test with, and that was a problem, was they would just hit the Zoroarks and not the Pidgeots. So we don't want a lot of things in play that will reward the opponent for attacking them, because if they want to knock out, an Octillery or a Shining Celebi, it's still annoying because Octillery is a big part of the deck and letting us get our draw going. But it allows us to hit with Pidgeot first for big damage and force them to hit the Pidgeot, which is what we want them to do in the first place. So I hope this video helped people out who want to play with a Mega Pidgeot deck or a Pidgeot deck in general and can't find anything on YouTube because other people just aren't good at playing anything that's not meta, and really have to rely on other people to win with a deck first before they decide they want to play with it. So this here are all the things that I look for when I want to build a deck: is find a Pokemon that I like, play to that Pokemon's strength, and then go from there. So as always, I want to thank you all for taking the time to watch my videos. I did hope you find this video helpful, and hopefully you can maybe help me learn something about the deck too, simply because I'm the only one playing it. So any new tech that's found is because I found it, and I would really love to have help with this. And I want to thank you all for watching my videos, and hope to see you all in the next one.